Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Three Men Talking Fantasy Football. I'm here with Mr. Thomas Lang and Mr. Anthony Perez. My name is Mr. Bill DeCouslis. How you doing, gentlemen?
Good
Doing
evening,
good.
boys.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Feeling really, feeling really good today.
Yeah. I mean, this is a big day in the country. We all are here to for the voting aspect of things. But you know what? The thing that unites us all together is fantasy football.
That's true. A huge day,
Huge day.
Yeah.
consequential for ad drops for Week 10 for
Yes,
fantasy
sir.
football.
I'd just like to
Um,
point out real quick. How did you guys do in your fantasy leagues this weekend?
Great.
pretty well.
I was
Pretty well
down
across the
88
board.
points last night and ended up pulling the victory off. It's one of the reasons
Oh,
why I love fantasy
I told
football.
you. I told you, man. You were worrying about the 86 points. I said you're going to hit that even higher.
Oh man, it was a good game to watch. Well, the overtime that ended up winning it for me. So I'm so glad they didn't go for two.
And DeAndre Hopkins. Woof.
Yeah, talk about a bounce back week.
Talk about a great week, but DeAndre.
Nice. I always love it when awesome guys go off the waiver wire just because they had a higher waiver priority. Um, that's
You know,
nice. Yeah.
that's why we play fantasy football. Sometimes you always got to be a little butthurt and just get over it.
All right. Well, speaking of some ad drops, I don't think we might not be talking too much about KC or the Bucks, but we've got quite a lot of options to talk about. We could probably start with the running back position. Um, Probably worth mentioning in the probably owned, but if they're available, go for it category. We got a couple names here. Austin Eckler at this point. Um, uh, who's the Brian Robinson? Is he questionable still? Is he going to play?
I don't know. I
Uh,
was actually surprised that he was even not playing this past week. I didn't see it until the morning. So
yeah,
I
it
enjoy.
was a game time decision that he basically got pulled off.
I didn't even realize. I thought it was like I
Well,
didn't
there
even
was
realize it wasn't playing.
Well, yeah, there was no indication throughout the week that he was hurt or nursing an injury or questionable. So when I saw that pop up, in the morning, I have Austin Eckler, so I started him right away. But I guess that's something to monitor going forward.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
definitely something to monitor. Especially with that running back issue. When a player goes down, another player steps up on Washington. They got a great offense right now. They're putting up points. Obviously Eckler when he was down, they had the two-headed monster over there, and I feel like they're always going to have some sort of movement, on the ground because there's a lot of electricity throwing the ball.
some other guys in the same category at this point. Tyrone Tracy's basically completely taken over the New York backfield. It's worth checking. I know a lot of these guys maybe they're not available in your league, but it's definitely worth checking out. Um, then we've got my favorite, of course, Rico Suave at this point. Rico Dowdle, for everybody else who doesn't know, for the Dallas Cowboys. At this point now, he's basically taken over the complete backfield for the Dallas Cowboys. God knows how valuable that's going to be, especially now with the Dak injury, um, and the CeeDee Lamb injury. So I think he's an extremely good pickup going forward for anybody who didn't have him. You guys agree? You guys agree with that, or are you more skeptical on Rico Dowdle?
I mean, I like him to an extent, but I just feel like they're going to stack the box, and it's just really up to Cooper Rush or whoever's going to be the quarterback there for the period of time to get the ball out. Obviously, if CeeDee Lamb is still out this week, which it's kind of teetering that he might play, but if 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 ownership was smart and understood that their chances of making the playoffs are slim, getting slimmer and slimmer by the week, especially with Prescott out. I think that they're gonna be sitting CD this week, and even though they're playing the Eagles, correct? So
Yes.
it's a great divisional game. But again, if you want a player long term, I think they'll probably sit him this week, and Rico is going to have 8, 9 men in the box, and it's going to be a tough game.
Yeah,
Maybe.
if I'm probably staying away from that situation. The Cowboys' offense is just a mess right now. Now with injury to Dak, injury to CeeDee Lamb, I like everything that Tommy mentioned. If there's other options out there, I would look towards those and shy away from the Dallas running back situation at this point.
Speaking of the other options, just some other guys worth mentioning. If by some miracle Chuba Hubbard or Chase Brown is still on your waiver wire, pick them up immediately. Um, Basically, no questions asked. And then, probably a lot of what we could talk about at the running back room at this point of the season. Again, we were kind of building up to it the last few weeks is kind of handcuffs. And top on the list there is Tyler Algier. I know, Anthony, you and I have talked about that he's not there, obviously, with Montgomery and Gibbs, but he's in close to the category of like, look, you need a spot start. He'll roll himself into the end zone. He'll get you 8-9 points or whatever. He's definitely in that category, irrespective of owning Bijan Robinson. But if you own Bijan Robinson, I have no idea how he's not picked up. He's only rostered in about 50% of leagues. Some of the other handcuffs, Bucky Irving, Ray Davis. I mean, you guys are on the handcuff bandwagon as well.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I think going back to Chase Brown, I think Chase Brown has a vital role in that offense. I think his role is going to be more in the passing game moving forward, especially with the pickup of Khalil Herbert. I think Khalil Herbert is going to be more of the uphill runner on that offense. He's a very good running back. He just was not in a good position with the Bears, and he's obviously showed a lot of flash in his career. I'm actually really excited for Khalil Herbert to come to Cincinnati because it's kind of he has some flashes like a Mixon. In a sense, he's not overly elusive, but he definitely has some strong running aspects.
So Herbert reminds me of David Montgomery. I think they have similar style, similar build, and I think he can be that for the Bengals. I think this is a great situation for him, and clearly the trade for Herbert shows that Moss is probably out for the long term at this point. So they're looking for the future, securing a backup, and I think he's going to be more than a backup. I think he's going to get some playing time. Like Tommy said, I think he's going to get some valuable touches. And don't be surprised to see him racking up some fantasy points for the next couple of weeks. He's got a matchup, I think, against Baltimore coming up. And then to the Chargers, which is a little bit tough, that he's on another bye week. But I think he's a must-add in all leagues at this point.
Yep, and he is only 4% owned right now. So I mean, it's going to be just like that DeAndre Hopkins situation, if not a little bit more. He's definitely low owned. Everybody's going to want to try to grab somebody like that.
How soon does he take to get up to speed in that offense?
Well, running backs can just fall in place. What's that?
I think he probably minimal snaps this week,
Yeah.
if anything. But I expect him, especially right after the bye week. He's got Pittsburgh, Dallas, Tennessee, and then Cleveland. So there's some favorable matchups there for him.
Well, yeah, and I also think running back is an easy position to understand because if you run zone, if you run these elements, these kind of plays, like it's all the same play, same kind of blocking scheme. You just need to actually be patient and read your offensive lineman. For somebody like him, he's a veteran. He's been on pretty devastating Chicago Bears teams, and he's been productive with it. So I think that he could figure it out. He's obviously going against Baltimore this week. It's a tough matchup, but getting more run and getting more feel on that offense, being again 4% owned through ESPN rosters. I think it's not a bad pickup, even if he's your fourth or fifth running back on your roster, and you just wait and see. Bye weeks are coming up, and he might be a plug and play.
I feel like I could name so many names that maybe I'd rather plug and play in than that. I mean, that's a tough one, especially for a new guy who's brand new on the team. I get it.
I mean, players do it all the time. I mean, 2 years ago, you had a quarterback in the name of Baker Mayfield, the same day traveled all the way to Los Angeles and had a tremendous game on a Thursday night. So I don't believe, and that's commanding a whole offense. So I hear what you're saying. It's tough and all that stuff, but I think that coaching right now is a little bit more basic, and they could make plays for a running back in that caliber.
I'll be honest. In terms of guys that are widely available, maybe Khalil Herbert's more valuable to the Chase Brown owner at this point. But I mean, just on the list that we've got, I mean, I would rather have Ray Davis, who's available basically everywhere, who's already proven that he's going to have an unbelievable game if James Cook goes out, who's already been out this year.
Well, Ray Davis, and just to piggyback off that, I mean, we're talking about different caliber. I mean, elements right there. Like Ray Davis he's great in the passing game. So like he's 7 for 8 in targets, 135 yards, a touchdown. Has 35 carries for 187 yards, 5.3 yards per carry. So he's getting plays, but again, just to go back to the value aspect of being 4% owned, I think caliber of offense, they're kind of the same caliber of offense between Cincinnati and Buffalo. And I think that right now they don't Cincinnati doesn't have that backup running back because of Moss being injured. So I think Khalil Herbert, being a veteran, jumps into that position and has a bigger role than Ray Davis. And he is less owned. I mean, it's not crazy. Ray Davis and also Khalil Herbert are widely open to be picked up. But I think Ray Davis is a boomer bust play at times, and Khalil Herbert is going to get more touches.
And I think Khalil Herbert will definitely get some red zone touches as well. And there's going to be that touchdown aspect to him, where I think they'll definitely put him in on the goal line, and he's going to look to vulture some of Chase Brown's touchdowns. And with Ray Davis, I think if you're a James Cook owner, you want to handcuff yourself with Ray Davis, sure, go for it. But even last week, he had some points, but majority came off of one catch for 70 yards and a touchdown, because he had that big touchdown catch. You take that away, he scores maybe one fantasy point. So I think in a few weeks, Herbert is going to play an impact on that Bengals offense for sure.
Yep.
We should probably mention, like, there's probably a couple of these guys that are in that category of just the names. So, like, right off the top of my head, we've got Blake Corum, Tyler Algier, Braylon Allen, and Ray Davis in the guys that are awesome as handcuffs. They've already proven it already. They're good to go, locked and loaded, perfect insurance. This is not the same as maybe other guys that are great, like Saquon Barkley, for example, that maybe their backup situation isn't so clear. It'll be like a running back by committee.
No, their backup situation is very clear. It's Gainwell. They have Shipley as the third, but Gainwell is the backup over there.
I don't know if it's as, in the same category as Blake Corum or Tyler Algier at this point, but
okay.
Yeah. Well, it remains to be seen. Any other guys you want to mention at running back? It's a little bit thin this week.
I think that if you're a Williams owner, you got to handcuff Blake Corum. I'm not sure what he's still doing sitting out there on the waiver wire, because if something were to happen to him, Corum is that guy to jump right into the role. And
things do happen to Williams. I mean, he's a hard-nosed runner, but when somebody runs hard, they usually are injury prone. So, and he got hurt 2 times last year, and one was pretty extensive. So yeah.
Move on to wide receivers?
Sure.
All right. We got a lot of guys compared to running backs. We got a lot of guys to talk about. Let's just quickly get through the probably owned category. We've got Josh Downs. It was not the best game in the world for Joe Flacco against the Vikings, but still, Josh Downs still managed to scrape a decent day. If he's somehow still available on your waiver wire, I feel like he's a great pickup. And the other two names, and one of which is probably worth discussing, we've got Jordan Addison, who had an unbelievable game in the same game against the Colts as the second fiddle in Minnesota. I feel he's got to be a great pickup. Although it should be noted that now T.J. Hockenson is back and he's ramping up his usage, so it's worth keeping in mind. And Jameson Williams, who's coming back from his PED suspension. How do you guys feel about the probably owned category?
So did Jordan Addison have a good game because his dad tweeted out he should get the ball more because Sam Darnold isn't looking his way? No, he had a good game this past week, and I mean, I drafted him last year in one of my leagues. He's a guy that has the potential to be that standout number two guy for the Vikings offense, and he's a guy that I like. I think he should be stashed in all leagues and at least keep him on your bench.
You don't think the Hawkinson ramp up is gonna impact him?
Not necessarily. I mean, Sam Darnold's doing a pretty good job spreading the ball around anyways. I mean, look, Justin Jefferson's touchdowns have taken a hit this year just because Sam Darnold's not afraid to sling the rock. I don't think it really hampers it all that much, to be honest with you. I think Jordan Addison is a good bye week fill in and potential flex play as well.
Maybe you're right, and this has been however many weeks now in a row that I'm probably doubting the Minnesota offense and Darnold in general. I'm still waiting for the shoe to drop, but I've been wrong.
Jordan Addison had 11.1 points. He had five receptions for 42 yards and a touchdown last week. His week 4 game was great at 19.9, but I mean, obviously he's getting the ball, but I wouldn't say he had like an eye opener week,
I mean, compared to other second fiddle options and different offenses. And again, I'm kind of mitigating what I'm saying by saying that I still think that TJ Hawkinson takes so much of his work away eventually when he gets ramped up. Jameson Williams, though, definitely on the opposite end of the spectrum. He was doing unbelievable before his suspension happened. How long was his suspension? Was it 3 or 4 games? Do you guys remember?
3 games.
3 games. He's 70% owned. If he's somewhere, I feel like you just pick him right up. By the way, and they're past their bye now, and they've got a good matchup at Houston. I mean, any issues firing him back up?
The Lions' offense is funny to me. And maybe you could attest to this, Billy, because I know you have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jared Goff, they're winning big. That's the crazy part, is the Lions are winning big, and Jared Goff is throwing maybe 13 passes a game for 100 yards, and that's it. You know what I mean? I don't know what happened to their passing game. And granted, their run game is really good, but the last few games they haven't needed to pass the ball at all. And in a fantasy perspective, that kind of worries me. Laporta is a shell of his former self from last year. Amon-Ra is not having the year that he had last year offensively. Jameson would be the guy for the big play potential, but passing wise, that offense does scare me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and I think it's just, if you look at just NFL analytical element of it, they're running the ball. They're comfortable with their running game. Yeah. Gibbs is more confident in his runs this year, and the offense is more comfortable with giving him the ball more consistently this year than they were last year. I remember in the beginning of the season, I think it was almost like 10 weeks that Gibbs was he was a top 6 running back taken off the board, and he was almost a bust until week 10 or 11 last year, and then he just exploded. I think that they are very comfortable running the ball, and receivers on that roster are kind of like a coin flip every single week. I mean, you have your target of Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's going to get his targets, but outside of that, I mean, it's very, very tough to feel confident starting a Jameson Williams week in, week out. Laporta obviously is not getting the targets as consistently, but they're going to run into their matchups where they're going to have to start throwing the ball a little bit more, and I think it's just more matchup based element.
Yeah, I agree. From an NFL perspective, they're playing amazing football. They don't need to throw the ball. That's in NFL terms, that's a great thing. You know what I mean? That you can use your run game to your advantage and score 50 plus points and outscore your opponents every game. Fantasy perspective, though, it does make things a little more difficult.
Yep. Before his, it's probably worth pointing out, before his suspension, week 1, he was obviously ridiculous. He was a top 5 wide receiver. Every other week, so just in order from after week 1, week 2, 14 points. Week 3 was bad, 1 point. Week 4, 16 points. Week 5 was the bye. Week 6, 17 points. and then week 7 it was bad, and then he got
We got to
popped
remember
up.
a lot of those points came off of big plays.
Right.
So so again, he's a boomer bust play. When you have and here's the element of how that works for that roster as well. If you have men in the box and they're running the ball, then he has man-on-man coverage. He is a tremendous wide receiver. He has a tremendous amount of speed. He'll beat the guys down the field, whoever he's playing against, and they'll get the ball to him. So that's where the big play happens. If they don't run the ball, they run a play action. He's gone. If Goff can get him the ball, that's where it is. And those are the big boom plays. And they don't need to throw the ball down the field as much as they did last year because they're controlling the game.
Right. And and to your point, Tommy, like some of these games, they're just smashing these teams. And at that point, they could just, throw it to linemen or, hand off to backup tight ends or
there's more linemen.
You got Montgomery throwing touchdown passes this season.
Yes, sir.
Porter's one touchdown came from David Montgomery. So
that's
why over there. Good for them.
That's why, Anthony, like I think the Lions in general, like when they have games that they're being tested in, like the Minnesota game, most of the guys that you're counting on are coming through in games like that. I mean, but when they're smashing the Cowboys or the Titans or something, no, it's they get lineman offense.
Yep.
So in the more widely available category, if somehow Cedric Tillman in your league hasn't been picked up, he's only rostered in about 47% of leagues. Anthony's favorite guy. He is on a bye this week, but I feel like it's a perfect opportunity to pick him up.
It's definitely
2 weeks ago. You're going to want to pick him up and you're going to want to own him. And let me tell you, if you missed out on the Tillman train, it's left the station. And at this point, after the bye, I think Tillman's must start every week. He had another good game this week. He had 6 receptions on 11. He got 11 targets this week, 75 yards and a touchdown. And I actually watched that game. He actually caught another touchdown. The defender made an amazing play and ended up jarring the ball out of his hands in the end zone. So kudos to the defender. But he could have had 2 touchdowns, and he had a 25-yard reception that was called back on a holding call. So his stats would have been even better in our league, would have put up close to 30 points again. I think Winston's going to continue to throw the ball. The Browns are going to be playing from behind a lot. And I think he's a must start and a lock every single week now.
Well, Anthony, I wouldn't say must start every single week. I mean, well, let's put it this way. Would you say if you had Josh Downs, and Cedric Tillman, and you have one roster spot at your wide receiver 2 to play, who do you play?
Cedric Tillman, 100%.
All right. All right. So you have Cedric Tillman and you have Terry McLaurin. Who do you play?
I mean, I don't think they're in the same category.
Yeah, that's
not
the
the
same.
Hold on. No. But you said it's a must start, so I want to know.
I'm looking at Terry McLaurin as a wide receiver 1. I'm looking at Cedric Tillman as a wide receiver 2.
All right. Well, so if you look at Terry McLaurin this week, they're playing the Steelers. Cedric Tillman is playing. He's on a bye. Well, it's not gonna work this week, but
well, we'll go next. We'll go week 11.
Yeah,
Cedric Tillman's playing New Orleans.
Well, speaking of that, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Tom. Go ahead, Anthony. Sorry.
The target's number 1. And I said this literally 2 weeks ago. The targets are there. He got 12 in week 7, 9 in week 8, 11 in week 9. He's going to continue to see targets. Winston's going to continue to get him the ball. I mean, if you saw the touchdown that he scored this past week, I don't know why they don't just throw it to him more in the end zone. It was an amazing catch by him. Beautiful play. He bodied up the defender. The guy has size. The guy has speed. He's the number 1 guy in the Browns. And like I said, Winston's not afraid to throw the ball.
Can I offer you a bold take on this, Anthony? I want your opinion. All right. So his last 3 games are ridiculous, obviously. His breakout game was against Cincinnati, who's a horrible defense. Then Baltimore, against Baltimore, who's an awful passing defense. And then they were home against the Chargers, and his last touchdown was a little bit garbage-like. But let's count it. He's about to go on a bye. You're right. They're at New Orleans, coming out the bye. Next 4 games, Pittsburgh, Denver, Pittsburgh, Kansas City. If you're the Tillman owner, you try to cash out high right now?
I mean, it's always in your best interest to cash out high if you can. If you have an alternative or someone that's looking for a wide receiver, I mean, I'm all for it. someone in my position, I'm probably going to ride it out with him. He's number one.
Man.
Yeah, I mean,
he's got, but like the matchups are hard at New Orleans, Pittsburgh, at Denver,
I
at
think
Pittsburgh,
he'll have a good game. He'll have a
Kansas
good game
City,
against New Orleans,
Cincinnati, Miami for the championship.
I'll give you New Orleans, but after that, yeah.
I mean, if I was a Tillman owner, I'd probably try to sell him. I'd probably try to sell him for an RB2. For the person, like, you know, the person that really needs that wide receiver as a wide receiver too, and say if you're just tight at running back, I would try to get that running back 2, running back 3, especially during these bye weeks. I guarantee you he's on rosters that some people won't even touch him on the field. Like he won't hit the roster spot. And you know, if you got somebody like that, you know, package a play where you could get like. Maybe you might be able to put a Tillman and a low end running back or a handcuff for a David Montgomery. Who knows? You might be able to get someone like that because of the person needing that element of a wide receiver on his roster. So I mean, just look at people's rosters, and you know, he might be a good trade away target because, and a lot of people are not looking at the next couple weeks. I mean, he could have a tremendous down the stretch run, but statistically, it's going to be tough.
I agree, Tommy. We'll see.
He's a great player, though. He is a great player. I mean, if you want to stash him and play him, that's fine. But you might get more value trying to trade him.
Well, to Anthony's point, if you're on the fence about trading him, you have basically this week and next week because he's probably going to have a good week against New Orleans. And so whether it's maybe wait until the bye or whatever. Well, while I have you both talking about guys like Cedric Tillman, I would love to have you both explain to me why guys like Allen Lazard and Rashad Bateman should be picked up. Go ahead. Whoever wants to jump in first.
I mean, I'll go with both of them. I think Lazard, number one, has to be picked up because of the element of Williams being traded. Lazard obviously still has a connection with Aaron Rodgers, even though Devontae Adams has obviously the connection. Garrett Wilson now has a connection, but the number 3/number 4 target on that offense, he has value. Not saying he has every week value where you have to plug and play, start him every single week, but he might be a flex play. Down the road again with buys happening and whatnot, you might be short and he might be a play right there. He's had a tremendous amount of opportunities every single week. He gets his targets, he gets his end zone targets. So I think he is somebody that should be rostered, at least for stash play. And then Rashard Bateman, I know I plugged him in here. I'm still high on Rashard Bateman until it proves that Deontay Johnson is taking over. Rashard Bateman was on a number of plays. He had a number of targets on plays that basically were called as penalties. He has the opportunities getting the targets, and those numbers that the penalties were showing or the penalties were called is not showing the reflection of the targets, right? So I think that he's definitely somebody to be on. He's on the field. He's getting targets. He's getting plays that are run his way. And he's somebody that you should probably have on, I'm not saying start him every single week, but he's the same position as a Lazard. Both those teams are, I think right now Bateman is on the better offense. And they are throwing the ball more consistently now. Lazard obviously is on in a way, they're turning more into a pass-first offense from the perspective of how I was seeing things this past week, and I think they're going to consistently do that. Obviously opens the door for the Breece Hall owners for the running game with, also the passing game with that element. But, both of them are viable pickups and, stash plays.
Well, I'll try to counter this. So the Lazard one, unless you have an IR spot, I can't. I don't even disagree with anything you said, but I just can't see it as a pickup. The earliest that he would be coming back would be week 13.
I'm not saying pick him up, and I'm not saying like you have to pick him up right this second. I'm just saying he's definitely somebody to just keep an eye on to pick him up down the road. Or if you want to have an IR spot, pick him up. You can pick him up. It's value.
All right. So Rashad Bateman, Uh, First of all, I won't even use the argument that they don't pass the ball so much because Lamar does have these games where he does pass the ball a lot. That having been said, I don't know where on the pecking order Rashad Bateman is at this point, but I could say that he's definitely not first, second, third, fourth, or fifth. You've got two tight
I don't think,
ends.
but I don't think there is anybody that's for. I know there's obviously a first target, but I don't think there's anybody second, third, fourth, or fifth. It's literally spread the ball.
Right. And so it makes people extremely not outside of Zay Flowers. It makes everybody really unreliable, not worth taking a shot on, especially considering that they just traded for Deontay Johnson right after the game where Rashad Bateman missed the easiest catch in the whole wide world.
Again. I made this clear. I made this clear last week, the weeks prior to. Right now, with the trade of Deontay Johnson being there, Bateman's value is going to diminish over time. Right now is a time to potentially have a plug and play with him because he's going to have his explosive weeks.
Okay.
I guarantee you this upcoming week, he most likely is going to have 6 targets, 5 receptions for 106 yards and a touchdown. That's my projection.
If he does not have a good game this week, home against Cincy, then that's it. Call it a day.
It's going to be an explosive game.
I'm willing to take that. I would take that bet. Give me let's make a line then. I'll take a bet with you.
Okay. 5 for 6, 107, and a touchdown.
I'll say 4 for 70 and no touchdown. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see who's closer. It's like the price is right.
I like it.
Yeah. We'll see. Very, very useful predictions on the fifth wide receiver for the Ravens. In terms of some other options at wide receiver, who do you like, Anthony?
So as of today, because of the trade deadline, a guy that I'm kind of excited didn't get traded away, who I thought for sure was getting traded away, is Adam Thielen. I think at this point, with him staying on the Panthers, he's owned in 26% of leagues right now. And I think that number needs to go up close to 100. Last year, Adam Thielen was Bryce Young's favorite target, especially in PPR leagues. He's going to have tremendous value going forward. When healthy, he will be the number one guy there. And the Panthers are going to have to throw the ball a lot. I foresee them being down in most of their games going forward. So the targets will probably be there. And they got a great matchup against the Giants next week. So I think he could be a good flex play if he's healthy and starting this week.
You see him being number one over Xavier Legette?
I do. Yeah, he's got that connection with Bryce Young. He was last year. He was his favorite receiver. He had a good stretch for a while. Just Bryce Young's inconsistent play kind of hurts him a little bit, but I think Thielen will be that guy and the top guy on the Panthers.
What about you, Tommy? So the guys you want to mention?
Yeah, I think Jauan Jennings is he's a big target right there. And I think that's somebody that everybody wants to talk about right now. It's he's 61% owned, or 62% owned. He obviously had his monster game, which brings his statistics up there. Obviously he had a couple weeks off with injury, but with the injury of Brandon Ayuk, they're kind of thin at that running back, that receiver position, and obviously with CMC coming back this week, it looks like that's going to open up a lot more passing opportunities. Obviously, Deebo is back as well. I think with a healthy Jauan Jennings, he's not the same caliber as a good year Ayuk, but he's been playing better than an Ayuk this year. And I think that he is definitely I won't say wide receiver 1, but he's going to have his wide receiver 1 weeks. He's definitely a wide receiver 2 play every single week.
Yeah, I agree with you. And his matchups, so this week at Tampa Bay, next week, Seattle. So I'm so with you.
and who doesn't love that kind of hair? Like his hair, his bleached hair is awesome.
He's great.
Anybody with bleached hair scores 2 touchdowns a game.
So I gotta ask: Are we all in on the hype train for Quentin Johnson? Or are we thinking he's fool's gold?
I was waiting for somebody to mention him, man. I swear to you, I think it's fool's gold.
agree with you.
100%.
I don't
I
know.
agree with you 100% too, Billy.
I don't know. I mean, again, he's a good player. He had two really good games this year. But again, those were in positions where obviously they gave for Herbert the opportunity to throw the ball. When they're leading, it's like kind of like the Lions, but not the same caliber as the Lions. When they're in control of the game, they're running the ball. When they feel like they need to make some maneuvers and switch it up a little bit, run a play action, this that. Quentin Johnston's a big deep play. Palmer scored a touchdown last week as well. And that Palmer was basically Joshua Palmer was a primary target. People were drafting him in the 13th round, saying, "Oh, I got a wide receiver 1," and things didn't pan out because Harbaugh doesn't throw the ball.
They're throwing it more now.
But yeah, and I think it's because they have to develop more of a diverse kind of a game, and he's understanding that this isn't college football. And the game has changed since he was the quarterback, since he was the head coach of the 49ers. They need to be a little bit more diverse, run play actions, throw some deep balls, open up the field so they can get the running game going. And, Dobbins had a nice week this week because they were able to do that.
It's funny you say that because that was the biggest argument against J.J. McCarthy coming into the NFL is, he barely threw any passes when he was at Michigan under Harbaugh. Yep. They ran the ball majority of the time. And you were right. He's kind of followed suit in that direction, coaching the Chargers. It's nice to see him opening up and throwing the ball more. I think Herbert's a talented quarterback. He should be slinging the ball. And, Johnson's got a good situation with him as his quarterback. It's just, I have a hard time seeing him actually turn that leaf and turning into a legit wide receiver 1. He's just way too inconsistent for me.
Well, again, I think there's a lot of opportunity out in the passing game for them. They have a nice amount of options. I'm not saying they have a number 1 wide receiver, but they have a number of role players, kind of like the Ravens situation. I don't believe that Flowers is a wide receiver 1. I don't believe that they have a wide receiver 1 opportunity on that roster. I think that they have a bunch of role players, some speed guys. They might have wide receiver 2s, but those players are going to have boom or bust weeks, and it just is what it is. It's kind of like, falling in line with the running back situation. Like, would you start, going back to the running backs, in the element of, would you start Jaylen Warren and also, Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris every single week together? Would you start them if you had them both together? No. Right? You wouldn't start Jaylen Warren unless he was the primary starter because of Najee Harris being hurt. In reflect to the receiving element of that, you can't start any of those wide receivers and feel comfortable about them, confident. There are plug and plays for bye weeks, but they're not people that you would actually plug in your roster when you have a fresh roster.
I agree with most of what you said, Tommy. Like, one thing I disagree. I know we just talked about Rashad Bateman, but first of all, Zay Flowers is a wide receiver 1. He's the wide receiver 5 on the year or something like that. I don't know how you could consider that otherwise. That having been said, these guys for the Chargers, I agree 100%. They're basically plug and play. Take your shot on, how well do you think that they're going to perform?
Well, Zay Flowers is number 10. He's a low end number 1. But again, he's had his weeks where he doesn't have his consistent weeks. If you don't break 10 points or if you don't break 8 points a week, that's a bust. That's not wide receiver 1 caliber. If you go a week where you have 5 points the first week, 15 points the second week, 2.3 points the third week, 1 point, 12, 13, 3, 11, 24. His best week was last week. When you're not consistent like that and you're having single digit weeks, those are not wide receiver 1 numbers.
No, but I mean, wide receivers to some degree are always going to be a little bit inconsistent. I mean, but it's
not like for Cedric Tillman.
Well, the last 3 weeks anyway, but we just said trade him away anyway. Anyway, but the point is, I'm agreeing with the thrust of your point that you got 3 wide receivers on a team that they're just getting used to the fact that they are actually throwing the ball. Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, and Josh Palmer. And if I had to take a shot on any of them, it would be Ladd McConkey from a week-to-week basis. But so like I feel like Quentin Johnson is like, all right, you want to take your shot, go for it. But there's going to be a million people picking him up after his performance this time. Maybe it's not worth losing your waiver priority on picking
No,
him up versus other guys.
no, I think Lad McConkey is the most valuable player at wide receiver on that roster.
Right.
I will say though, he's got some nice matchups coming up. I think he's got Cincinnati and then followed by Baltimore. So the potential there is possible strong flex play if you need someone to fill in on a bye week. He has potential to get you some points in that matchup if need be.
I just have one or two other names to mention real quick before we move on. I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the ongoing saga of the Bills wide receiver situation, um, which including Amari Cooper. I'm curious what you guys make of it. If you guys read it any different than me, what do you think?
I think Keenan Coleman still has tremendous value. I think he's benefiting. He's going to continue to benefit with the favoritism of rosters, defenses playing Amari Cooper as the number one wide receiver. Keenan Coleman has a lot of value. He is a tremendous athlete. Obviously, Khalil Shakir is the flex. He's basically he's gonna be running those short routes. He's not really running like super downfield routes. He's more of kind of like I look at Khalil Herbert on the Bills like I see a Wan'Dale Robinson on the Giants. He kind of the same play. Wan'Dale is based on his PPR. Khalil and Wan'Dale would be like a big full point PPR play. Whereas Keenan Coleman, he's going to be more of an end zone target. He's going to get some deep balls. He's going to get the opportunity to make some pretty great plays down the field, and he's going to have single coverage. So
I basically see it the same way. I mean, yeah, I'll just leave it there because I could go on and talking about the inconsistency of
and Anthony, what do you think?
Bills pass catchers.
I'm kind of on the same boat as Billy. It's hard to trust who's going to be that guy. I think it's going to be different every week. I think Shakir, is going to have one good week. Then I think Coleman's going to have one good week, followed by Amari Cooper. It's funny. It turned into a situation where at first Buffalo had no wide receivers and they were kind of panicking about that. To now, I feel like they have a lot of mouths to feed. Dalton Kincaid, Shakir, Coleman, now Amari Cooper. All have proven that are good wideouts. So I think it's tough, and I think Josh Allen cares more about obviously winning football games, and it's just going to be different every week. I can't see a consistent guy that I can say, in my opinion, just maybe besides Amari Cooper, I have to start this guy every week.
Yep. Any other names? We can move to tight end, or
one name I do want to point out, and I think with the injury to Drake London is Ray McCloud on the Atlanta Falcons, who's owned in 16% of leagues right now. When London left the game this past week, McCloud got into the end zone again. At least 4 weeks now, where he's had at least 3 receptions for 42 yards. And I think with London possibly being out, that stat line only gets better for him. We've seen that Kirk Cousins likes to throw the ball. They're playing New Orleans, who gives up the third most fantasy points to the slot receiver, which what Cloud plays in. So I think it's a good matchup with him, especially if London's out this week.
I agree. Tight ends?
Sounds good.
Yep. In the probably owned category, we've got the greatest tight end in the history of tight ends. We've got Cade Otton. If he's available on the waiver wire, pick him up. In this tight end landscape, I think maybe I could name like 4 other tight ends at this point I'd rather have. Actually, it's worth pointing out that Mike Evans is scheduled to come back. So they've got San Francisco this week and then the bye, and he's scheduled to come back the week after. Guess what? I don't care. Cade Otton is going to be great. You guys agree with that?
I 100% agree. I think he's a must start every week here on out. I think Mike Evans coming back, I think he'll obviously take some targets from him, but I think he's built that trust with Baker Mayfield that he's going to continue to see the rock.
I don't think it's going to take any targets away from him. I think he's a primary. He has plays scripted for him. I think he's still going to get his 4 or 5 targets per game, his end zone targets. He might score on average maybe one touchdown every other game. So there's an opportunity for him to get those points. And when you're scoring one touchdown every other game, those are tight end one numbers, especially when you're getting 5-6 targets a game.
I agree, Tommy, 100%. I don't think Evans is going to impact him. If anything, it'll open it up.
Yeah, I mean, it opened it up. It just depends on the situation. Shepard had some pretty good plays, which opened up the field a little more for Cade Otton for those plays as well. So
it's worth mentioning that T.J. Hawkinson, he's owned in about 75% of leagues. If he's available, he's worth the pickup. They started ramping him up, so he didn't have like that great of a game this last week, but for him to have come back from the injury, immediately get put in, and immediately they're ramping him up, he's going to be scheduled to have a decent, considering how bad the tight end landscape is.
He's rostered that high because of the value of the player he is. I mean, right. But in football elements, they can't just throw a player like his caliber out on the field, especially how they're playing as an offense. It's not like they need him necessarily right this second, but the value of TJ Hawkinson going out there, for the other players on that roster, like an Addison and obviously a Justin Jefferson, I mean, it's just going to open up the field so much more. But it's going to open up the field for him when he's 100% ready to go, which probably I think in 2 or 3 weeks he'll be 100% on the field, 100% snaps. That's when you want him. You might be able to there might be a couple players. Managers that basically have a TJ Hawkinson on their roster, and they saw last week, and they're just looking for that immediate success. Start game plan and spitball on some opportunities for trades, because you got to remember these trade deadlines are going to be happening soon, and we got to make sure that you guys get yourself ready for the playoffs. And TJ Hawkinson is definitely a player that you want to have on your roster, because he could finish off as a top 5 from this week moving forward for the rest of the season.
I agree. I think we've had a little bit too much agreement, so let's get into probably what we're going to have a disagreement on. So in terms of guys that are more widely available, to me, the number one pickup on the entire week, regardless of position, especially, taking into account the fact that he's very widely available, it's Mike Gesicki. And it is not based on just chasing basically 2 good games and one really awesome game. Tommy's heard me say this a million times before. I have zero faith in T. Higgins. None. Completely none. I think
I'm surprised he didn't get traded.
I am too.
Yeah, me too.
I think this week, I mean, he comes back and he plays, and he's just T. Higgins of last year.
I disagree with you. I think he's the most overrated player in fantasy football in recent memory.
I will say this about Mike Gesicki. When T. Higgins doesn't play, he effectively operates as Bengals' number 2 wide receiver. And during that time, he has a 20% target share, he has a 29% air yard share, and he's got 3 yards per route run with a 25% first read share. Those are amazing numbers, especially for a tight end. This past week in week 9, he had a 50% target share for 100 receiving yards and 2 scores. Is he going to get 2 touchdowns every week? No, but he's going to get the looks. And especially with Eric All being out now, who was the number 1 tight end there,
right?
He's done for the year. This opens up the floodgates for Gesicki.
And what makes you think that T. Higgins is going to be fighting to come back? You know what I mean? Like he's going to have tons of.
I think I think it was also it was a football move for the team. It was a football move. I guarantee you there was behind the scenes trades trying to happen for T. Higgins. And the reason why he didn't go out there, obviously he had the hamstring situation, it was a quad situation. But he played the week before. And because of the trade deadline, they just basically saved him just in case there was a nagging injury to come up and basically kills a deal. I think he comes back this week. You think that's what happened? Yeah. I mean, the NFL is very strategic. I think he comes back this week and he plays the rest of the year unless there's an injury that pops up. And I think it's a legitimate injury at this point.
I guess we'll take it at face value. I agree with the notion that Mike Gesicki's amazing without T. Higgins. if T. Higgins plays, let me take out my bias from it. Then maybe he isn't as good.
I think speaking in football terms,
Yeah.
with your bias aside, I think it does hurt him a little bit. Um, because like I said, with the statistics I just shared, that's all without T. Higgins being there.
Right. Right.
Um, so I think with T. Higgins in the lineup, especially that first read share, I think those numbers will drop. I think where he becomes more effective, though, if T. Higgins plays, is I think Gesicki now becomes more effective in the red zone.
Yeah, and and again, they have Baltimore this week, which is a great matchup. They have Los Angeles Chargers the following week,
and a bye,
which is it depends on which LA Chargers team shows up. Then they have the bye. They get everything fixed up, ready for the playoffs if they're making that playoff push. They got Pittsburgh, which is another divisional game right there. Then they got Dallas, who's in shams right now. Tennessee, who can't stop a nosebleed. Cleveland, who just basically gave up half their roster. Their defense was it a Zadarius Smith basically got traded. So they don't have the same pass rush as they had before. So it's going to open the field for deep throws. Then you got Denver for the championship week. This is looking far ahead for a Gesicki element, but he definitely is somebody that you might want to roster just in case, because he will be that third target if T. Higgins is there. Even if T. Higgins is not there, which I don't anticipate to happen, I anticipate T. Higgins to be on the field moving forward. But Gesicki, with those two players, those two stud receivers, and the element of the new running game there, that opens the field for him. And I think he still has a manageable opportunity to score a touchdown week in, week out.
Anthony, do you like him more or Taysom Hill?
Well, that was going to be my next
the Swiss Army knife
tight end pickup for this week. Taysom Hill, who's rostered in about 37% of leagues right now. I just think with the injury to Chris Olave, I can't see him. I don't want to make any speculations. I just have a hard time.
Be very careful on Taysom Hill speculation right now. Be careful.
No, I'm talking about Chris Olave. I don't want to speculate
on
his injury and his return time, but gotcha. I don't foresee him coming back anytime soon. We'll wait to see what happens if he gets in a limited practice tomorrow or not, or if he even clears concussion protocol. But remember, this is like his 6th concussion, so I think there's going to be some definitely a lot of consideration going on with his future. But anyways, that aside, I think Taysom Hill is definitely a must-add now. You got Shaheed out for the year. Bub Means is banged up, and now Olave out. So, like Tommy mentioned, the Swiss Army knife becomes a lot more value because not only can he catch, he can also run, and especially
and he could also throw.
And he can throw, yeah. And listen, I've been a Camaro owner before, and I've seen Taysom Hill vulture many touchdowns from him in the past. And as a Camaro owner, it was the most frustrating thing. But Taysom Hill is good at what he does, and he's going to play an effective role in the offense moving forward as long as Olave's out. He played 45% of the snaps this past week. He had 9 opportunities, and he got a total of 60 yards with a touchdown.
I will say this, and you just got to remember, the coach got fired in New Orleans this week. He was a Taysom Hill lover. He loved everything about that gentleman. Who knows what's going to happen with the who knows what's going to happen with basically the roster construction moving forward. I mean, they picked up MVS last 2 weeks ago. Cedric Wilson, who has shown flash on both the Dolphins and also the Cowboys, right? He played for both those teams back in the past, right? Yep. Yep, Miami and Dallas, and he's had some pretty aggressive years. But the value of Taysom Hill is not the value of being a tight end. The value of Taysom Hill, as you discussed, is basically his opportunity to throw the ball, to run the ball, to catch the ball. And I think, they're going to need some help overall. And I think he could be a nice plug and play for the bye weeks and potentially down the road I'm not saying he's going to finish up as a top 5 tight end, but based on his structure, how they utilize him, depending on the new coaching situation, who knows? But he definitely would be a player that I wouldn't have a problem, throwing on my bench and seeing what happens.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think he's, regardless of what you think about him, I think he's way better than some of the other options you could have at the moment. Um, we've got Zach Ertz, who we've talked about him every single week. He's always an option. They're on a great offense. He's a primary part of the offense. He didn't have such a good game this past week, but he's
No, he didn't have
he
a
could do
good
way worse.
Yeah, he didn't have a good statistical game, but if you watch the game, he definitely had a lot. He had a lot of opportunity on the field. He definitely makes that offense roll pretty well as well. He does a good job. He also is a good teacher as well with those players, those young players on the roster, and really helps Jaden Daniels out.
Yep, I agree.
Can I ask you guys a
yeah.
legitimate question? Maybe you can explain this to me. How is Hunter Henry not rostered in almost 100% of leagues by
Dude,
now?
I don't even know. Like, the dude is like the number one target on New England. Now Drake May is not.
That's why.
He's not a gunslinger like he was against when he was, what you call it, in London against the Jaguars that one game. But he runs the ball and he throws some check downs. He's been using the running back more frequently. I think that's the problem with Hunter Henry right now. Obviously, he's a great football talent, and he definitely is a player that you can start him pretty much every single week, but he's not going to. He also is a streaming tight end. He's definitely somebody that you could just throw in, and you didn't have like a Travis Kelce or an Andrews to this day right now kind of player. He's definitely somebody that can basically be a plug and play, or I don't know why he's not rostered.
Well,
I could answer. I could probably answer that. So like he had a great game to Tommy's point against Jacksonville. Then he comes back and plays the Jets, in which Drake May gets hurt. And he has a game against the Jets. And then it's unclear going into week 9, which he just had against Tennessee, who was going to be the starting quarterback. So his value goes down drastically if Drake May is not the starting quarterback and it's Jacoby Brissett. So because of the uncertainty, because of him having a meh game with the Jets, guaranteed that's why. And now against Tennessee, Drake May ended up playing. He had a pretty good game. That's my guess. It's still not.
I mean, he's still got the targets. I mean, well, so
the thing is, last 3 weeks alone, he's had 9 targets, 6 against Jets. So Jets is a tough matchup. Then he had 8 against Tennessee. I mean, he's the number one option there, in my opinion, on the Patriots offense. And if you're in a bind where you have Hunter Henry or Sam Laporta, Hunter Henry is putting up more numbers than Sam Laporta right now.
Right. Well, I mean, but here's the thing. Like,
here's
the thing. We could talk about that too, like, and all that stuff with Hunter Henry. He's a number 6 tight end ranked right now. But if you look below that, Zach Ertz is number 9. Dalton Schultz is number 10. So like there's still players that are not rostered or 50% owned or 60% owned or 40% owned that are just not even being rostered right now. And again, it's what it is. It's a crapshoot. There's opportunity to basically plug and play every single week. And not saying that these players are putting up tremendous amount of numbers, because there was a week that basically Hunter Henry had 0.1 points, and it's because he fumbled the ball, he caught the ball, he fumbled the ball, he had 1 yard or something like that, whatever it was. And then he had his explosive week. So they're very inconsistent. Trey McBride, for example, he had 3 or 4 weeks in a row that just were done. Like you thought the draft position or the draft capital was terrible, and then now he's consistent. He's thrown up some numbers. With the Arizona Cardinals being the number 1 team in the NFC West right now, they're playing good football and they're throwing the ball pretty successfully. But outside of that, going back to Hunter Henry, I think he's somebody that should be rostered at least if you're gonna stream tight end, he's definitely somebody that you have to roster with another player.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think,
and I'm not about having two tight ends, but if the situation is like that, then you can't start them every single week.
Well, I mean, in my I'll use my situation as an example. You know, I drafted Travis Kelce really high this year. I think in the second round overall. And for how many weeks on end did he not hold up to, his average draft position? And it was kind of just like waiting. And finally, the last 2 weeks, he's put up back-to-back 30-point performances, which is great to see. And I hope that's more of a good sign of more good things to come with him. And then I started Kate Otten as well, so I'm in a position where I can start two tight ends and be in a comfortable position to know I'm going to get points. And luckily, these are the two top tight ends right now that are performing. I don't know. I think Hunter Henry, like you said, he should be at least stashed on your bench at this point.
What do you guys make of the Jonnu Smith situation in Miami? To me, it looks like he's becoming a focal point of the offense, basically to the detriment of Jalen Waddle. Are you guys willing to stay in the flames with Jonnu?
Anthony, you want to jump on that one, or
I mean,
something small about it?
I have no personal interest in Jonnu Smith. Right now I'm avoiding, besides A-Chain, I'm avoiding the Miami offense. Maybe Hill, and he hasn't even had, any good weeks as a recent. So that's just the offense passing wise I'm kind of avoiding right now.
I mean, he's getting the targets, but his best game was against Indianapolis this year, and that was when Snoop Connor, or whatever you want to call him. That's what I call him. Snoop Connor was that quarterback, and that was his best game as well.
Brett Huntley.
Yeah, Brett Huntley, Snoop Connor. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, he's getting his targets, but he's not getting those massive yards like he was getting with Brett Huntley.
He's only averaging about 30 receiving yards per game right now. I mean, he's got a matchup against the Rams coming up. If you have a guy that's on a bye, there's potential there for him to put up some numbers, because the Rams give up the fourth most receiving yards to tight ends. I
agree with you guys. I feel like we could find better tight ends. The fact that he's there, he's been performing. It's just,
put it this way, I'd probably start Hunter Henry over Jonnu Smith right now.
Oh, I agree with you.
Yeah, 100%. No, 100%. He's definitely somebody I would start over Jonnu Smith.
Anybody else at tight end, or we move to some QBs here?
Yeah, let's not even talk about that other guy on there.
Yeah. All right, quarterbacks. I know Mr. Lang has a little bit of a information he'd like to impart here about the quarterback position.
My big thing with the quarterbacks is, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11 quarterbacks that we have targeted on there. Some of them are 50% owned, some of them are 20% owned. It's kind of all over. It's just like the tight end position right now. You have your stud tight ends. You may have like one or two really good tight ends that you have to start every single week, if not three. Same thing with the quarterback position. There's 1, 2, or 3 quarterbacks that you're guaranteed to start, lock in every single week. That you're not looking at matchups. And quarterbacks, then you got 9 other teams that need to basically start a quarterback. And I really feel that there is so many options on waivers, that there are so many streamable opportunities that you could just basically plug and play every single week. For example, Matthew Stafford is going against Miami, and I think that's a really good matchup for him, especially with the healthy roster. He's 29.8% owned. If you have for example, like a Tua, like you're rolling on Tua this week, and you could stream one or the other, I'd probably go Matthew Stafford over Tua, right?
Absolutely. But like, to your point, like anyone, like there's so many options of maybe player matchups, play whichever guy. Just name any one of these guys. It's kind of what we were saying last about why would you ever draft a quarterback early?
Yeah, and I think this is And, we could go through all the names that we have on here. Russell Wilson, 21.6, Sam Darnold, 56.7, Aaron Rodgers, 52.10, Tua, 42.7, Justin Herbert, 43.3, so on and so forth. Those are percentage of owns. But, I personally, if I'm looking at it, based on matchups this week, I don't think Jaden Daniels is a starter this week on a roster. He's going against Pittsburgh. It's going to be a really tough matchup. And, unless, it's completely proven wrong, but I'd rather go with the safer play. And my safer play, if I had Jaden Daniels, I probably would play Justin Herbert, pick him up and play him.
Justin Herbert at home against Tennessee. They're a very good defense thus far this year.
Tennessee?
Yeah. Tennessee.
No, I mean, they're very good in the first quarter, and then after that, they let up 42 points.
Yeah,
you're talking about the one game against the Lions, but
other than that, they've been pretty solid.
Yeah, but honestly, I mean, and again, this is like this is a bold prediction on my end. Like, if I had a player like Jaden Daniels that has a tough matchup this week, I would play Justin Herbert, and I feel Justin Herbert is going to have more fantasy points this week than Jaden Daniels.
Honestly, if I had Jamie Daniels right now, I'd look to stream Daniel Jones. He's going against Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, I have my Giants kind of ordeal with that one. I mean, they're also going overseas to Germany this week, so who knows what kind of Daniel Jones is going to show up. He might be eating Broschwort, whatever, on the sideline and drinking some beers.
I mean, if you're in a bind, that's a perfect matchup though for him on paper. Like you said, anything could happen over in Germany.
And also, some people would rather end their life than play Daniel Jones this week. Anthony.
Oh, we can't talk like that. We're streaming. We're streaming on YouTube now.
I agree the thrust of what you're saying, Tommy. I don't know if I would choose Justin Herbert over Jaden Daniels. I agree. Matt Stafford, fire him up. Home against Miami with a full healthy roster. I agree.
I'm telling you, lock this in.
Actually,
Justin Herbert is outscoring Jaden Daniels this week.
I'll take that bet too.
Here's a good question for you guys, and maybe you can break this down. What happens if you're a Dak Prescott owner and you don't have another quarterback?
Start Cooper Rush.
No, that's what we're saying.
They traded for Jonathan Mingo. It's all over. They win.
No, like any one of these guys. Matt Stafford's, again, we're going to bring up his name a million times, but Stafford's a great option considering how available he is. I agree. Like, if you have to, Herbert's available. I mean, even Bo Nix, although he's playing Kansas City, we have Sam Darnold. I mean, he's available still in 50% of leagues magically somehow. I mean, you have options. You're not at a shortage of options.
Yeah, another good play is Aaron Rodgers going against Arizona this week. That's a pretty spicy matchup.
Yeah, Anthony, we'll save our criticisms of what we think the Jets will or will not do.
No, but I'm saying someone like a Dak Prescott
option.
Someone like a Dak Prescott owner, where you have nobody to start and you got to pick the waiver wire. That, like you said, I think that's up there with Matthew Stafford. I think Rodgers has potential to put up some points this week as well.
I think that I still think Russ is a better play than all those guys. Russ at Washington, although the Commanders' defense has gotten better, but
yeah, they have.
But the point is that all the guys, to Tommy's point, all the guys that were just kind of thrown out there. There's so many options for this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complete crapshoot this year. You could start anybody, and I wouldn't say 100% confidence, but nice, like, chill confidence, like you could have with some of these starters. Yeah.
I tell you what's great to see real quick on a side note is, a lot of people were so down on Baker after Godwin and Evans got hurt, and it's just nice to see him continuously thrive. He's having the best season of his career right now.
He is.
Yep. You guys want to talk about some defenses, and then we'll close shop?
Yeah. So there's probably a lot of defenses I could say, but probably the easiest hole-in-one that nobody has got it. Giants defense at Carolina. Nobody's owning them right now. Fire them up. Let's go. Get your sacks. We win.
So I'm going to mention another defense who I brought up last week too. Again, is the Detroit Lions. They had a defensive touchdown this past week. Going into this week, they're playing Houston. The week after that, Jacksonville. The week after that, Indianapolis. You can have them locked there for the next 3 weeks and be all right.
my start of the week defensively is the Eagles. You going against Dallas at Dallas, destroyed Dallas team. If if their defense is healthy this week, then it could be a pretty good defensive game. But I do see obviously the Eagles coming ahead and finishing off pretty strongly with that offense down the stretch. But the Eagles are 53.7% owned. They have a good defense. And I feel like they came together more consistently last week. To an extent, they did let up a lot of opportunities down the road and almost lost the game, which I also think it's script and game flow of that coach over there. I'm not going to talk about people having to get fired, but he probably should get fired. But that team.
I thought you were going to talk about it.
But that team, honestly, the Eagles on paper, they have so much potential. This is coming from a Giants fan. They're a very good roster. They have a lot of opportunity. I just think there's a lot of bad calls with the coaching. But the Eagles defense is definitely a good start this week with no Dak Prescott and potentially no CeeDee Lamb. And no running game.
Oh, fire it up. Yeah, that's going to be great. Although Cooper Rush is fairly decent. No, they're going to get
Cooper
killed.
Rush is 5-1 with the Cowboys as a starter, so
we'll see. I mean,
this could be a spark for them.
Well, you got to remember the Eagles always crush it in Dallas.
Yeah,
I know a lot of Dallas fans right now that are very happy Cooper Rush is starting for them. Let's just
were they happy when Dak Prescott made all that money? Just like everybody makes fun of Daniel Jones making all that money.
Oh, no, they weren't. They weren't. They weren't. One of my close friends is a huge Dallas fan. I mean, he went on about that for days, which, I can't say I disagree with him. I'm a big component of, and I said this to you about Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is a great football player, but to me, and in terms of the contract, he has not won the big game yet. You know what I mean? Like, the only quarterback that I can say, deserves what he deserves is Pat Mahomes right now, because that guy has shown time and time again, maybe with a little help from the referees. Well,
don't start.
You don't get me started.
But but time and time again, this guy shows up when it matters and wins the big game.
Yeah, I also think I do think
Jackson hasn't done that.
I do think piggybacking off of Patrick Mahomes, though, I with winning the big game, winning that overtime game, I really think that they need to implement the playoff element of it in regular season. If you score a touchdown, you should have the opportunity to score a touchdown. I really think that the NFL needs to go to the college rules of overtime. It just make it so much more exciting and gives both teams the opportunity. But that's another conversation for another day.
I was about to say, at the behest of not boring our listeners, we won't have three old men shouting about how they want to change the rules in football.
Hey, the kickoff rules changed to. I mean, I'm okay with it now, but it's a lot to put together in my mind.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, good luck, everybody, and have fun on the biggest day in America for the year. Week 10, free agent ads. Good luck.
Yes. Good luck.
Have a good night, guys.